Picture this. You're diving in the twilight waters off the coast of Indonesia. The sun's last rays pierce through the surface, creating dancing columns of light in the murky depths. You descend past coral formations, past schools of fish that move as one. And then you see it. An octopus. But this isn't just any encounter. As you watch transfixed, the creature does something that shouldn't be possible. It doesn't just see you, it studies you. Its skin ripples with colors you've never witnessed before, patterns that seem to communicate something profound. One of its arms reaches out, not in aggression, but in what can only be described as curiosity. And in that moment, you realize something unsettling. You are not looking at a simple mollusk. You are staring into the eyes of an alien intelligence, one that evolved completely independently from our own, following a path so radically different that it challenges the very definition of what it means to think, to feel, to be conscious. For centuries, we've operated under a fundamental assumption that intelligence requires centralization, a brain, a command center, one organ calling the shots while the rest of the body simply obeys. But what if we've been wrong this entire time? What if intelligence doesn't need a brain at all? The octopus represents one of the most radical experiments in the evolution of intelligence on Earth. While our own lineage, mammals, birds, even fish, all share a common ancestor with a centralized nervous system, octopuses diverged from us approximately 600 million years ago. That's 3 times longer than the separation between humans and dinosaurs. Think about that for a moment. The last common ancestor we shared with an octopus was a primitive worm-like creature with barely any nervous system at all. Since then, we've evolved brains independently. We took one path. They took another. And the destination they reached is so fundamentally different from anything else on this planet that studying them is the closest we can get to studying truly alien cognition. Here's where it gets disturbing. An octopus has approximately 500 million neurons, roughly the same as a dog. But here's the twist that breaks everything we know about neuroscience. Only 1/3 of those neurons are in its brain. Let me repeat that. 2/3 of an octopus's neural tissue, its thinking matter, is not in its head at all. It's distributed throughout its 8 arms. Each arm contains approximately 40 million neurons. That's more neurons than in the entire brain of a rat. And these aren't just motor neurons mindlessly following orders. These are autonomous processing centers capable of making decisions independently. An octopus doesn't just have 8 arms. It has 8 semi-independent thinking appendages, each one capable of solving problems on its own. The mechanics of distributed cognition. So how does this actually work? How can a creature think without thinking? How can an arm solve a problem without consulting the brain? The answer lies in what neuroscientists call embodied cognition, but taken to an extreme we've never seen before. When you or I reach for something, our brain sends signals down our spinal cord, through our nerves, to our muscles. The entire operation is coordinated from the top down. Command and control. The brain is the general. The arm is the soldier. Not so with an octopus. Imagine you're that octopus, hunting in a crevice for crabs. Your brain, your central command, knows you're hungry. It knows there's prey nearby, but it doesn't micromanage the hunt. Instead, it sends out a general directive: search for food. Your third arm on the left receives this signal, but what happens next is extraordinary. That arm begins to explore the crevice autonomously. Its suckers, each one packed with chemoreceptors that can taste and smell, probe the rocks. The neurons in the arm process this information locally, creating a sensory map of the space without ever consulting the brain. The arm encounters a crab hiding under a ledge. Without waiting for approval from headquarters, the arm's neural network makes a decision. It changes strategy. The suckers shift their grip pattern. The arm bends in precise ways to extract the prey. Meanwhile, your brain is barely aware of the specifics. It knows the arm is working. It knows food has been found. But the granular details, the exact movements, the micro-adjustments, those are all handled by the arm itself. This isn't just delegation. This is true distributed intelligence. Each arm is operating with a degree of autonomy that would be impossible in a centralized nervous system. But here's where it gets even stranger. Scientists have discovered that octopus arms can continue to hunt, to explore, to react to stimuli even when completely severed from the body. In laboratory settings, detached octopus arms have been observed crawling toward food, recoiling from unpleasant stimuli, and even attempting to bring food toward where the mouth would be. Despite no longer being attached to a body, the arm remembers its purpose. It continues to execute its programming. Think about what this means. We're not talking about simple reflexes, like a chicken running around with its head cut off. We're talking about goal-directed behavior, problem-solving, memory, all occurring in an appendage that's no longer connected to a brain. This is intelligence without centralization, consciousness without unity. It's unsettling because it forces us to ask, where does the octopus's mind actually exist? Is there a self in there, or is an octopus more like a colony of semi-independent beings cooperating toward common goals? The coordination problem. But if each arm is thinking for itself, how does an octopus avoid complete chaos? How do 8 semi-autonomous thinking appendages work together without getting tangled into an impossible knot? This is what neuroscientists call the octopus's coordination problem. And the solution is as elegant as it is bizarre. First, there's a hierarchical structure, but it's nothing like our own. The central brain doesn't send detailed instructions. Instead, it broadcasts what researchers call motor primitives, basic patterns of movement that the arms can interpret and execute independently. Think of it like a conductor giving a downbeat to an orchestra, but each musician is improvising their own part. Second, and this is critical, octopus arms have a built-in mechanism that prevents them from grabbing each other. Their skin secretes a chemical signal that their suckers recognize as self. When a sucker touches this chemical, it immediately releases. This is automatic, hardwired, requiring no conscious thought. But here's the truly fascinating part. Scientists discovered this mechanism by doing something rather macabre. They removed the skin from a severed octopus arm and presented it to the living octopus's other arms. Without the chemical signal, the octopus's own arms didn't recognize the flesh as belonging to their own body. The suckers grabbed it readily, treating it as food. Let that sink in. The octopus couldn't recognize its own arm without the chemical tag. The unity we take for granted, the feeling that our body is a single coherent thing, doesn't exist for an octopus in the same way. Its sense of self is chemically mediated, distributed, negotiated between parts. This raises profound questions about consciousness itself. When we ask, what is it like to be an octopus, we might be asking the wrong question. There might not be a unified what it's like. There might be 8 different streams of experience, 8 different perspectives, all contributing to a collective awareness that has no human equivalent. Some neuroscientists have suggested that an octopus might be less like a single creature and more like a parliament, a collection of semi-independent members who vote on actions, with the central brain acting as a moderator rather than a dictator. Imagine experiencing the world this way. Your left hand is exploring a texture you can't quite see. Your right foot is tasting something under the table. Each limb is processing information, making decisions, living its own micro-life. And somewhere, in the center of it all, there's a coordinator trying to make sense of these 8 different streams of consciousness, weaving them into something resembling unified action. This isn't science fiction. This is how an octopus experiences reality every single day. The mystery deepens. But for all we've learned about octopus neurobiology, there are mysteries that continue to elude us. Questions that strike at the heart of what intelligence even means. Consider this. Octopuses are masters of camouflage, capable of matching complex backgrounds in less than a second. They can mimic the texture of coral, the pattern of sand, even the appearance of other animals. Their skin contains millions of specialized cells, chromatophores, iridophores, leucophores that create color and texture with staggering precision. Here's the problem. Octopuses are colorblind. They have only one type of photoreceptor in their eyes. They shouldn't be able to distinguish colors at all. Yet somehow, they match the colors of their environment with perfect accuracy. How? Some researchers have proposed that octopus skin itself can see, that the same light-sensitive proteins found in their eyes are also present in their skin cells, allowing them to sense color without using their brain at all. If true, this would mean an octopus doesn't just have distributed intelligence, it has distributed perception. It sees with its entire body. But this hypothesis remains controversial. Other scientists argue that octopuses might be using brightness and texture cues in ways we don't yet understand. The truth is, we simply don't know. And that's just one mystery among many. We don't fully understand how octopuses learn, how they form memories, or how they make decisions. We've observed them using tools, solving complex puzzles, even appearing to play. We've seen them escape from tanks, unscrew jars from the inside, and recognize individual humans. Some aquarium workers have reported octopuses who seem to dislike certain staff members, squirting water at them specifically while ignoring others. Is this just pattern recognition, or is something more complex happening? Are octopuses capable of emotions, of preferences, of what we might call personality? These questions aren't just academic, they're ethical. If octopuses possess a form of consciousness, distributed, alien, but real, then how we treat them matters. And yet, for decades, they've been excluded from animal welfare protections in many countries, classified as simple invertebrates despite mounting evidence of their cognitive complexity. Only recently have some nations begun to recognize cephalopods as sentient beings deserving of ethical consideration. The European Union now includes octopuses in its animal research regulations. But this acknowledgement raises more questions than it answers. How do you measure suffering in a creature whose pain might be distributed across 8 semi-independent thinking arms? How do you ensure the welfare of an intelligence so radically different from our own that we can barely comprehend its subjective experience? Let's return to that moment in the Indonesian waters. You're face to face with an octopus, and it's studying you with an intelligence we're only beginning to understand. For centuries, we've defined intelligence in our own image. We've assumed that to think, you need a brain like ours, centralized, hierarchical, unified. The octopus obliterates that assumption. Here's a creature that evolved intelligence from the bottom up rather than the top down. A creature whose mind is not a dictatorship but a democracy. Whose consciousness, if we can even call it that, is distributed, fragmented, multiple. And yet it works. These creatures navigate complex environments, solve novel problems, exhibit what appears to be curiosity, playfulness, even individual personality. They do all of this with a nervous system organized on principles completely alien to our own. What the octopus teaches us is humbling. Intelligence is not one thing. Consciousness is not one thing. Evolution has discovered not just one solution to the problem of navigating the world, but many, and we've barely begun to understand the diversity of minds that share this planet with us. When we search for extraterrestrial intelligence, we imagine beings with advanced technology, complex languages, sophisticated societies, but we already share our oceans with intelligences that evolved along entirely different paths, that experience reality in ways we can scarcely imagine. The octopus reminds us that we are not the only experiment in consciousness. We are just one variation on a theme that evolution has been exploring for billions of years. And perhaps the most unsettling realization of all is this: if intelligence can emerge in a creature so fundamentally different from us, if consciousness can exist without centralization, without unity, without anything resembling what we call a self, then what else might be possible? What other forms of mind, of awareness, of experience might exist in forms we haven't even thought to look for? The octopus isn't just an animal. It's a mirror held up to our assumptions about intelligence, consciousness, and what it means to have a mind. And when we look into that mirror, what looks back is something gloriously, unsettlingly, profoundly alien.